enough research, and we thought that this is the area which is going to be writing India's destiny for next 20 years. The last 20 years, when India took off from $800 million foreign exchange reserve to 300 billion today, and our prosperity also grew multifold, thanks to India's opening up the infrastructure sector, financial sector reforms, urban reforms, and IT sector development. These were the glorious stories that we had over the last 20 years. What is that we have in next 20 years? Because these sectors are tapering down, and it will stabilize like any of the Western countries, the developed countries. The growth rate will slowly come down from 9 to 8 to 7 to 5%, maybe stabilize at 3-4%. But the next 20 years, which will drive India's story nuts, is defense. The biggest thing is defense. A, because India's own requirement is going to be humongous. B, we can become a net exporter of military hardware from net importer. We are very proud to, all of you have read that we launched the Agni missile very successfully. Not that we are going to attack anybody, we have not attacked anybody. But this would be a strong deterrence. But how many years or decades it took to develop those missiles? So we need to bring in the technology from outside, all over the world, and build those capabilities within the country. Today, I must say that I was one of the severest critic of the government policy for 20 years, because when I started India's first private sector seaport, I remember that was in February of 1990. So a lot of pig-headed fellows in the government said, where is the policy? I said, true, there is no policy, but you can make one. If you realize that, and if you agree with me that India needs the world-class infrastructure. In those days, Indian ports used to take 17 days to turn around a ship, including pre-berthing time and turnaround time, compared to the ports like Singapore, Hong Kong, Rotterdam, Bremen, Hamburg, Le Havre, 12 to 24 hours. I said, you realize, I spoke to a particular gentleman, I said, you realize, sir, that we need world-class infrastructure. He said, yeah, we do need. So either you do it or let us do it. Let us do it means private sector. There is no midway. Let us not talk like there is no policy. In 1947, where were the policies? The policies were formed depending upon the country's requirement. And if you don't realize that we need the private sector today, we are anyway into the grave. That's how they got started. And I remember that when the railway privatization started by Mamata Banerjee, a lot of people have loved and had story with her. The fact of the matter is that she got convinced. She told me that, after she got convinced that why the railway privatization should be done. She said, you will make a lot of money. I said, we'll profit, but not profiteer, because I'm not NGO. My religion is to make money. If I don't make money, nobody will develop these critical railway projects which are in limbo for 60 years. And so she said that, okay, let's have a public-private partnership. So we did it in a record time, 300 kilometers of railway in a record time of something like 16 months. So we went to the government, we said that, why this is kept so secret? And you think I'm less nationalist than anyone else in this Ministry of Defense or integrated headquarters? And government, I must say that, all the critics, I've been, as I said, that I've been a severest critic of the government. I must say that the government listens to the good ideas. And all this while, they've opened up many sectors. 6 of them we are responsible to start off with in the country. They opened up the defense sector. It's a paradigm shift. Last year, it was a game changer. In January of 2011, Government of India introduced Buy and Make Indian. That means as long as you and I can make it in India, it will not be imported, which is a big thing. It will open up the opportunity of an unparalleled magnitude for anyone like you and me. So we said that this is it. We also looked at the opportunity of building the warships, because in this country, we have some of the finest government PSUs, but some of them, for some historic reasons, are not able to deliver what our country needs. For example, some CPR delivers the warships instead of 4 years, 12 years. It's a public information. It was appeared in Times of India, so it's no state secret I'm telling you. And we realized that can a country afford to pay a 5,000 crore frigate if it delivered at 19,000 crores, or instead of 4 years in 12 years, that's not Good, because we are not a rich country who can afford to pay this kind of cost. Even if we are a rich country, we cannot afford to pay. So the government also looked at it, opened up the sector. So today, defense is no more a very secret and very complex in that sense. It is opened up. If the $247 billion worth of contracts is given out next 5 years, it will open up the opportunity for offset. Suppose if some of them are being imported, because till such time, a private sector develops the capability, government will be forced to import. So, like a lot of companies went to the government and said, give us the contract and we'll build the infrastructure. Now that is not done thing. Government wants to know how deep is your commitment towards the country and towards the sector. But there is no dearth of business. We all know there is no dearth of business, but in order to garner those business, you have to put a serious money to work. So you have to put the money where your mouth is. So we, of course, many companies are taking lead in that, but we took the leadership role and we invested over $1 billion in building this second largest defense focused shipyard in the world. And we became the first company, like people were aghast. Some of my board members have been the defense secretary themselves, at least 2 of them. And they were quite aghast in the beginning. They said, this is a very, very risky proposition. And they were right, because their job is to protect the interest of the shareholders, the company. And we thought that unless you demonstrate that I am a serious player, here is the infrastructure. Tomorrow, God forbid, if they give you a contract to build submarines, and if there is a war breaks out, and if you fail to deliver for any reason, maybe there is a tsunami or there is an earthquake, and you couldn't build the facilities to build the warships or armaments or whatever, why should countries suffer? Because of our aspiration to become a leading player in the defense sector. So we did that, and fortunately, everybody in the board supported us. And the government also supported us by giving us the first license to build the warships in the country. So we are the first private company who can build the warships in India, and we became the first private company who get a contract to build the warships. So not only we got the license, but we also got the contract. This demonstrates that this sector needs private players. This sector needs committed Indians who can build the facilities. Today, India spends about nearly, 2.8% or nearly 3% of our GDP. We are almost on par with US. US spends over 3.5%, Russia spends 3.5%, except Saudi, whose challenges are of different magnitude, who spends 8%, but normally people spend 1 to 2%. We spend about almost 3%. And this spending will grow. As our geopolitical challenges increases, we will be forced to spend more and more. For the first time in the history, Indian government approved a mountain brigade of 90,000 soldiers, which will mean a large number of guns and helicopter would be required, because India suspects that some enemy could cross the mountain and attack India. So we have to have a mountain brigade. Now these are 65,000 crore expenditure. If the Indian industry were ready today, they would have had ball, absolutely. But yet, it is not too late. So defense is the one sector, I think it also has a potential of a dual use of technology. Many of the technologies, for example, I'll give you an example of a photovoltaic solar energy, thin film technology. Typically, we all know that this is used for generating the non-conventional energy. And a soldier, when he goes for the combat responsibility, he carries a battery pack which weighs almost 14 kg. The mobility of a soldier reduced dramatically with this kind of the weight, but he's well trained to do that, and he does move with that kind of weight. But with the photovoltaic solar energy thin film technologies, which is called CIS, cadmium indium diselenide, you make a small roll and make a small pack weighing just 500 grams. So this is used for civilian as well as military application. So the opportunity of a military technology is not restricted to only military usage, also for the civilian usage. The next 20 years, this is going to be the biggest story. Maybe 20 years I'm alive or not, but I'm sure those who are alive, they will see that this has contributed to at least 1 or 2% to India's GDP over the next 20 years, which is a big thing. So I think this is an area where I think we as an individual, collectively or individually, has a responsibility to play the role. I was talking to some investment banker, and we had Defense Expo, which is probably the biggest expo India has every 2 years compared to any other sector. There are 700 people across the globe come and display their product and services. You should see the rush, the kind of rush you have there. It's mind-blowing. And the last 4 days, and all 4 days, there is a mad rush to come and see the expo. This year, the people, the level at which they came to India was mind-blowing. The defense minister of UK to defense minister of many, many countries who came at a very senior level from US, Russia, Japan, they all came because they see India as a big market. When somebody who ties up with you for defense, a lot of other industry comes in. So there are other advantages which the country can secure once their defense preparedness becomes stronger. So I see that over the next 5 to 10 years, you will find, for example, when the sector opens up, take an example of petroleum sector. When this sector opened up good 30, 35 years ago, we had created 5 champions. Public sector, ONGC, private sector, Reliance, SR, oil, all was product of last 30, 35 years. Sector opened up. When we had IT sector opened up, we had a Infosys or TCS, we had a Wipro and many other such companies. There are at least 5, 10 champions. We had the telecom sector, again Airtel, Vodafone, these, that, 5, 6 champions. When the defense sector opens up, which is now, I would say, has just opened up, you will have no less than 25 champions. But that's tomorrow you may spend for your ABCD need of the country, but you will certainly spend for defense. This is ring fence from a lot of potential threat. In 2008, when the world was collapsing, India's defense budget went up by 14%. So this is one area which is ring fence from a lot of potential threat, both within the country and outside the country. And it can generate unprecedented employment, can bring in technology of unimaginable kind. Today, the government of India was very, very rigid on allowing only 26% foreign direct investment in the defense sector. And we put up the case to the government saying that if somebody has spent tens of billions of dollars to develop the technology, why would he transfer the technology to India unless he has an equitable chance of making money together? So the government has now been very considerate. They've said that on a case-to-case basis, if there is a compelling story, we will certainly look at the up to 49%, which is good. Look at the example of Brazil. About 3 years ago, the Petrobras raised the biggest raising in the world. I'm sure many of you would, all of you would know that. $75 billion they raised through the bond. And Petrobras is one of the biggest petroleum companies in the world. And they introduced a policy called, if you want to do business with us, and they raised $75 billion of debt also, so $150 billion was available with them. Now, who doesn't want to do a business with Brazil with $150 billion sitting in the bank account? So everybody went there. The condition was that you can take up to 49%, including management control, but come and set up the facilities in India. Exactly the same thing which is now happening in the defense sector. The people will be allowed to take 49%, but build the facilities in India. Gone are the days where forever the military hardware will be imported, and that will see India climbing up to the next level of prosperity. It will benefit all of us, you and us. With that, I think I spent my time. If you have any questions, I take 1 or 2, 3 questions. I'm happy to do so. And thank you very much for inviting me today. It's an unusual subject, but I love this subject, and I'm happy to share with my few thoughts with you. Thank you.
Any questions, please?
Sir, I was interested to know when we build the ships and the infrastructure, what you are building, what kind of IT is being used nowadays so that you will get some advantage out of that?
I think, as I said in the beginning of my speech, that at least in our organization, we recognize the need of the ITs a lot, because without that, your system can crumble and it will have a far-reaching complications. It has a long-term ramifications if you ignore this. So in our company, IT has a very important role to play, because it's all about, for example, submarine. submarine, how complex is submarine? The most complex single engineering piece in the world is submarine. It is 10 times more complex than a fighter jet, or 100 times more complex than a regular commercial jet. So it's all about IT. The system integration is all about IT. So IT has a very big role to play. And that's why I was interested when Ashish talked to me about the CIO and what you guys are doing, etc., etc. I said, this is a sector which is very closely, integrated into the defense sector.
Any more?
Thank you.
Please, sir. Sir, wow. Sir Mr. Nikhil Gandhi, it's what an inspiring and leadership, insightful speech on the sacred and secret of defense.